Hey guys, this is Chain77, coach of the Brisbane Heat Trans, here with a draft analysis. This time, we're going to be doing something a little bit different because we're not doing one draft analysis, we're doing 16 drafts analysis. That's because we're not actually going to be in this season's B-Drill League. We've decided to take a break. So I've decided to step up and do some PR work. The general history of Hive PRs has not been good, to say the least. Most are one and dones. Shout outs to Halu for actually lasting 4 weeks. We'll see. We'll see how long this lasts for. A quick background into the tiering or the draft system on how it worked. It was kind of like a GBA style draft where there were 5 tiers, and each person had to pick a mon from all 5 tiers, 2 from tier 3, 1 mega, and that left 4 other mons which they could choose from. They were restricted to how many points, and each tier has a certain point value assigned to them. So you get some pretty cool looking drafts. You got, some popular mons, some not as popular mons, all mixed in together. For this post-draft analysis, I'm not actually going to do a power ranking, purely because I'm basing my judgments off the team alone, and I don't think that's very fair because my view on the team would be biased to my play style. So I'm just going to look at the team, what are some strengths, what are some weaknesses, how it synergizes. Big thing for me is speed tiers, and yeah, we'll see how it goes from there. So the first team we have is Azar, the commissioner of the Hive, and he's got a very interesting looking team, a very offensive looking team, but also it's also slow but also fast, it's pretty weird. Although it looks offensive, he doesn't really have the best modes or best mons to set hazards. He's got Diancie, he's got Claydol for rocks, and then Tentacle for T-Spikes, but Mew doesn't really want to be locked into that stealth rocker role. It's far too versatile for it to be a stealth rocker week in, week out. So you gotta fall onto things like Diancie, and Claydol, both of which are weak to water, and you don't really want to be. I guess they are very matchup dependent. And then you got Tentacle, which sets up T-Spikes, and that can be force speed absorbed by poison types. So interesting offensive team without much hazard pressure. But one cool thing to note is that he does have quite a few trick room options. So Mew, Diancie, Claydol can all set trick rooms, and then you got some nice abusers in things like Crawdon. Magnezone can abuse the trick room Turtonator as well. So opponents will definitely have to be prepping for that. He's got a cool Psychic Dark Fighting core, which is a pretty nice offensive core to have, just because there isn't much that switches into, there's nothing that switches into all 3, and they cover each other's resistances pretty well. Such with this trick room sort of team, his speed tiers are really whack, and that could be problematic when facing bonds that are like around that base 90 to 100, which can run adamant or modest and sort of still outspeed Tapu Bulu. So things like Hydreigon, like Roserade, have fairly difficult switch-ins already, and then you have to account for them being modest. And yeah, could be a tough time for Azza, but we'll see how he plays around it. Team also kind of lacks that reliable recovery, but you know, he likes to play offensively, so that shouldn't be too much of an issue. Hazard removal is also fairly limited, but once again, he doesn't really like to use removal because it loses momentum on occasions, and sometimes it's just better to attack what's in front of you, and you know, gain momentum that way. Aside from Mew, his team looks like most of his mons are fairly one-dimensional. So like Zygarde, you know, you're going to be running Band or like a Dragon Dance set week in, week out. Magnezone, it's like the Trapper. You know, Scarf, Specs, just there to like break. Crawdon, you know, you got Dragon Dance, Sweeper. Like, these mons don't really have multiple roles like Mew, which can be defensive, can be offensive, can be a setup sweeper, can be a pivot. But yeah, and then Bulu as well, I guess, is semi-versatile, but being quad weak to poison is an issue, and not having the best defensives. And typing, it kind of limits its versatility as well. So yeah, it'd be interesting to see how Azza plays around that. You know, with opponents sort of prepping accordingly. His team is not particularly weak to any type. There are quite a lot of ice weaknesses, but there are also a lot of ice resistances. So I think he'll be alright on that front. I think one thing that I'll be looking out for with Azza is how he uses Mew. What sort of role Mew plays on his team every week, because yeah, he is fairly creative in the way he uses different mons. So I'm very keen to see how Mew will be utilized in Azza's hands this season. Next up, we've got K-Crick, one of the new members coming into Beedrill this season, and he has a very fat, annoying team. Well, his core of Mega Venusaur, Skarmory, Gastrodon is really disgusting, and yeah, some teams could struggle to break this core. His team is fairly weak to rocks, and you got Kyra Black, Rotom Heat, things that don't really want to be taking that chip damage, because you know, Rotom Heat can act as a nice pivot. Kyra Black acts as that nice breaker. So thankfully he does have some very reliable removers in Starmie and Skarmory. I believe Archeops can also defog Wallaby as well. But the first two are much better compared to the other two. Not the greatest amount of hazard options. I think you got Terrakion, Skarmory, and Archeops to set those hazards. But you know, Skarmory is one of the best hazard setters in Draft League, so maybe that won't be an issue. But you know, Skarmory sometimes does have that 4-move slot syndrome, because you want to be packing Roost, some hazards, maybe Defog, an attack, Whirlwind to set up sweepers. So he could run into issues there. His speed tiers are quite decent. 115 is kind of the lowest high speed tier you can have, I guess. if that makes sense. Capping out at 115 is like acceptable to me. Just like that's probably as low as you can go with your highest or fastest mod. Then you got, Terrakion and then Archeops as well, and yeah, it's just filtered down fairly nicely, just where it doesn't really allow too many things to be run adamant. I will say that the Kyron Black support is a little underwhelming. So some common or some general Kyron Black switch-ins are like your bulky waters or your bulky steels. They are the closest thing to Kyron Black switch-ins. And there isn't too much on this team that pressures that. So Rotom Heat kind of is thrown in there where it can take on both bulky waters and bulky steels. So that's pretty nice, but once again, that has a weakness, being weak to rocks. Also, don't really want Rotom Heat switching into those bulky waters, because you don't really want to be switching into a super effective stab move, even if it is from something like a Milotic or a Vaporeon. But to pressure those steel types, you got Terrakion as well, which can really hit them hard with close combat. But there isn't really anything to take on those bulky waters offensively. Yes, he does have a Venusaur. Yes, he does have a Gastrodon. I guess Starmie as well can help in that situation, but the first two are more reliable, and both of them could be considered as momentum drains. So Gastrodon can take those water hits with Storm Drain, but it can also very easily be toxic. And Mega Venusaur, being a bulky water switch in, is good, but it does lend itself to being doubled. A Mega Venusaur switch in is generally fairly obvious because it is so bulky, because it has reliable recovery. Usually you can see it coming and make it an aggressive double. And opponents might use this season, they might abuse this season, they might not, depending on sort of how Crick plays. But yeah, it'll be interesting to see how he balances this team. He does have some really nice wall breakers in Kyron Black and Terrakion. Terrakion can also self-sweep, but he doesn't really have that revenge killer. Mimikyu also, I guess, could revenge kill with Shadow Sneak and also Disguise, but I think it's probably best utilized as a setup sweeper with SD and a Z move. But yeah, we'll see how he uses his team. I don't really know how Cricket plays, so this could really fit him. But yeah, we'll see how he goes in the upcoming season. So next we got Alex, and Alex does have some really familiar mons with that Taunty Tangrowth regen core that he packed last season. Returning members, I believe Hitmontop, I'm not sure about Empoleon, but Hitmontop was definitely there. So he's got very solid hazards. You got Lando 2, Empoleon, Tyrantrum, Gardevoir, Azelf as well, so a lot of options, a lot of reliable options as well. But his removal is not amazing. It's just got Hitmontop and Empoleon. But having said that, his team isn't too weak to rocks. A little weak to spikes, but spikes is definitely not as common as rocks. He is fairly weak to ice, with only sort of 2 resists in Snorlax and Empoleon. And the issue with that is neither of them have reliable recovery. Both of them are also weak to fighting, so if you have a strong ice type with a fighting coverage, or if you have strong fighting type with ice coverage, I can really see that putting in a lot of work. Yeah, an ice type with Z fighting move, for example. A dragon spam could also be an issue for this team, just because he doesn't have fairy type, and once again his one dragon resist is weak to earthquake, which is very common coverage move on dragon types. Also, without that reliable recovery, Empoleon can get worn down fairly easily. His speed tiers aren't that hot. Taunty, Mega Manetric at the top, Azelf as well, but then there's that huge drop to Landorus, Therian, and then once again another pretty big drop down to Tyrantrum as well. So exploitable issues there for Alex to sort of have to deal with. But he has filled out this team really nicely with a balance of breakers and setup sweepers, revenge killers, and walls. And his team is quite versatile. So there's top 4 mons, quite versatile. Azelf as well, I would say, is very versatile as well. Mega Manetric is fast, be a nice revenge killer, and he's got some nice scarf mons there as well. But yeah, we'll see how many times he actually forgets Regenerator this season on his tank crew. But yeah, and we'll see how many hurricanes he hits again. Next up, we've got Daniel and his semi-stall cancer. Was got really fat first 4 mons, and then you throw in Goodra as well. It's definitely a team that lends itself to be played in a very slow, very methodical manner. But yeah, this team looks really disgusting to break. Got a nice regenerator core with Amonkhet and Slowking, and generally speaking, regenerated cores without Torn are fairly weak to Sizzle, and you can see he's a little bit weak to Sizzle. Like Tran and Fortress are his quote-unquote Sizzle switch-ins. So yeah, if you can sort of weaken that, if whoever has Sizzle can weaken those 2 mons, I can really see SD Sizzle putting in a lot of work. His hazard options are fairly decent. Clefable, Heatran, Fortress, Dugtrio, and Mega Aerodactyl are fairly reliable. A few of them are reliable, but he doesn't really have the variety, I guess, which would be more useful in a draft league sense. Also, his removal is very shaky, and it's not really helpful for a team such as Daniel's, because he doesn't want to really take that chip damage. It'll definitely put things like Heatran in range of certain things. It doesn't help as much with that regenerator core. Heatran without that reliable recovery is also definitely hampered by that. His speed tiers are also very strange, but he does have a lot of T-Wave support to help with that, so that will definitely be useful. But once again, he'll have to be preparing a lot for those adamant, those modest mons which doesn't. Yeah, it's not helpful for Clef, which is, I guess, it's not the bulkiest mon, and you just have to invest really smartly. And yeah, Adamant and Modest definitely won't help Clef take those hits. The type synergy between those 5 core fat mons is really good, and has the potential to be really good. He just has to be really smart with how he uses this team. But yeah, Machamp round 6 is definitely an interesting option. I could definitely see something like a strong ground type being a real issue for this team, like a banded Chomp or a banded Mamoswine. Yeah, it will be really difficult to switch into, because if he does lock himself into EQ, I guess they could predict that, go into something like Vigavolt or maybe Aerodactyl, but you know, Dragon or the Mamoswine, if he locks himself into Icicle Crash, and if he predicts the EQ, goes into Mega Aerodactyl, and they click Icicle Crash, you know, that could be really bad. But yeah, definitely choice items against this team is something Daniel will have to prep very hard for. Keyberry, however, might be really useful. I think Moringa Berry is the other one, where it boosts the certain type once off, certain defense or special defense once off. But yeah, maybe he might find opportunities to use that. Next up we have Ace of Base, the semi-finalist. What's happening? There we go. Semi-finalist. Oh no, sorry, finalist. The runner-up to last season's Hive. And we got, yeah, some very nice top 2 picks. So yeah, these bonds are definitely very nice, very versatile in how they can be used. So I can hopefully see Ace really put those 3 mons versatility into a good effect. He also interesting, has a really solid Fairy Dragon Steel and Firewater Grass Core. Probably I would say the best of the 2 combined. Definitely has the best Fairy Dragon Steel Core of this Visual League. So Breloom is an interesting pick, because it's walled by like very common types like poisons, flying types, and to a lesser extent bug types. But we see that he has some very nice support for that. So we got Arcanine taking care of those bug types. We got the Psychics here taking care of those poison types, and hopefully the other mons can sort of take care of those flying types. And this will just really allow Breloom to shine. Breloom thankfully does get Rock Tomb to hit those bug and flying types, plus gets that Technician boost. So yeah, hopefully we can see Breloom do quite well this season, because yeah, it's not a mon that's picked all that often. Does have a bit of an issue with bird spam and dark spam. So we got 2 bird spam resistances, and what's that? Breloom and Zoroark as your dark resistances. So I don't know, fighting dark. No, sorry, flying dark. It's flying in dark. Probably not Darkrai. What's the other legend? Yveltal? Yeah, this team will struggle against Yveltal. But no Yveltal, because this is not the ICBA. But yeah, Ace definitely will have to play around really strong dark and flying types. And if there is a team that packs both, well, good luck to him. His hazard options aren't great. It's just restricted, confined to Nidoqueen and Lycanroc. Midnight removal options are also a little dicey, with just Defog Swallow and Defog Lardy. But Defog Lardy is very solid. Not sure how often you want to be bringing Defog on Latias, because I think it is very useful as a support mon and can definitely take a lot of hits. But you know, Carmine Reflect type is definitely a good set to be a niche set, which I'm sure Ace will utilize, as well as his what is his Flame Orb Facade set. Flame Orb Psycho Shift Facade, yeah. I'm sure he'll whip that one out as well. Going back to Breloom and sort of what it can do with Lanoon and Swallow. Breloom, can really break those steel and rock types, just to help with that normal spam he has going on here. Specs Boom Burst from Swallow hits really hard, and then you got Lanoon to set up a belly drum and then just hit things with E-Speed. And hopefully Zorok can Pursuit Trap those ghost types to allow that to happen. Speed tiers are not too bad. Swallow, Latias, above that 100, Zorok as well. Then you got Mega Guard down to Arcanine. Lanoon, I believe, is 100 as well, so a bit of a gap between Arcanine and Breloom. But shouldn't it goes Arcanine, then Lycanroc, Midnight, and then Nidoqueen. So yeah, it's not too bad. He seems to have them nicely spaced. This team to me does look pretty offensive, but also can be fairly defensive, I guess. It just depends on how he wants to use those top 3, 4, 5 mons, because they can be run both ways. But it does kind of lack that really powerful breaker, because outside of guard outside of guard, they really need a choice item to be hitting super hard. So like a Spec Swallow definitely can hit very hard, or then you'd have to rely on some setup like Belly Drum Lanoon or an SD Breloom. But yeah, just not too much immediate power outside of guard, but then again the best guard set is Fat Guard. So but yeah, we'll see how Ace goes. I have full confidence that he'll be able to utilize this team quite well. Next we have Nada and his team, and we see that he starts off with Mega Diancie and Weavile, 2 huge offensive threats. I have I guess a personal favoritism towards Mega Diancie after using it last season, and yeah, it is very good. There isn't much that can switch into both its special and offensive sets, and yeah, it's just so good and just offensively versatile in that regard. But both do kind of struggle with those bulky water types, with certain bulky water types, and sadly the rest of the team doesn't really support those first two mons. Doesn't support those first 2 mons in sort of breaking those bulky water types. Something like a strong grass type, like Roserade, or like a Superior, or like a really strong electric type, like a Thundy or like a Coco. Neither of them, I guess they wouldn't really last till round 3. But yeah, there are other things like a Jolteon, which can Volt Switch on them and get them in with a really nice matchup. Yeah, something, for example, like a Suicune could be quite a big issue. We'll see what Suicune set is brought versus him. Hazard options are very solid. With Ferrothorn, I guess carrying the load, but you've got Stunfisk, Dragalge with his T-Spikes. I guess Diancie as well can also throw out those Stealth Rocks if the matchup is good. His removal options are passable just with Hitmonlee and Togetic. Speed tiers aren't great on this team, with just Weavile, Mega Diancie, Lando above that 100. Then you've got a bit of a drop to Hitmonlee, Chandelure, and then just a massive drop off to his really slow mons in Slowbro, Ferrothorn, Dragalge, Togetic, and Stratus. They're all very slow, but thankfully he does have quite a few T-Wave users, so he can throw around that yellow magic. His cores are really decent, especially, I guess, well, just his. Oh no, he's got both cores completed, and they support each other fairly well. So Ferrothorn, weak to fire, but he does have Slowbro, also Flash Fire, Chandelure to switch into those. So yeah, those two ones in particular support Ferrothorn quite well. Dragalge and Chandelure to me seem a little redundant, just because they kind of do the same thing. They're both really powerful wall breakers. I guess Dragalge does have the option of T-Spikes, but Chandelure is a little bit faster. But yeah, most of this team has those roles, general roles filled out, without too many common weaknesses, and we'll see how Nada uses this team and how this team sort of gels together. Because in theory it looks okay, but I don't know, my gut is telling it just doesn't have the greatest feeling with this team. But Nada is really skilled, and I'm sure he'll be able to use his team really effectively. So next up we've got Techno, another new member to the Hive. But yeah, Techno, the CBC season whatever champion he is, knocking out our good friend Jake in the first round of the playoffs with some Houdini magic. But we focus on this team rather than his CBC. Yeah, his top 3 mons are super offensive and are super threatening and really awesome. Fundy I definitely have fond memories of. Hydreigon and Scolipede are powerful and threatening in their own right. But I guess the mons below it, they don't really have the versatility which the top 3 can pack. Mega Blastoise, can be versatile. As a spinner, as a bulky mon, and as a wall breaker, but to be honest, I've never seen Mega Blastoise used to the I guess potential that I think it can be. I think in theory it's a really awesome mon, but I think it really needs that wish support for it to be utilized to its full effect. Or maybe some speed pass. Hint, hint. Yeah, this team kind of also, I think when drafting, Techno sort of made a mistake thinking Gorgeist was a tier 5, so it actually left him with a lot of points left over. So I believe he had 100 points left over, whereas everybody else either used them all or only had 20 points left over. So I would suggest trading Durant for something, because I don't really see how Durant helps this team. Its role as like a Scarf Mon is kind of duplicated through Hydreigon and Scolipede, because Scolipede with his speed boost, Hydreigon as a superior Scarfer in my opinion, just because, you know, his stabs aren't as good, but also it can miss with its ability, which the name escapes me right now. But yeah, Sigilyph, definitely keep Sigilyph as that nice meme. Hazard setting options are very solid. Donphan, Steelix, and Scolipede are very solid hazard setters, very reliable as well. And his removal options are also fairly decent in Mega Blastoise and Donphan, which he will definitely need, because, you know, you don't really want Thundy and Scolipede getting worn down repeatedly, taking those rocks damage. His walls also lack recovery, or reliable recovery, which could be a potential issue, but I have confidence that he'll play around this, you know, pretty smartly, play it fairly aggressively. And his team is quite weak to ice. You know, you got Gorgeist, Steel, Donphan, Thundy, Hydreigon, and Sigilyph. Then you got a couple of resistances in Blastoise and Emboar, but you know, they can't repeatedly switch into those powerful ice attacks. Yeah, I don't particularly like this team, but that's just me, because I sort of thrive on that versatility that different mons can bring. But you know, that's just me, and I'm sure Techno would be more skilled than I am at using this team, and hopefully he can make some transactions to improve his team, to upgrade one or possibly even two of his mons, to, you know, just make his team, I guess, suit him. But you know, we'll see. Next up, we got iPro, another new member and as we see, he's got Sandrill. In my opinion, one of the hardest things to stop in League, but you know, kind of, I guess, is limited, quote unquote limited, because, you know, he has drafted Mega T-Tar, and won't have the possibility of having 8 turns of sand. But in draft, I'm not sure if those extra turns of sands is useful as like a nice security blanket, but not always needed, because you have in effect 4 turns of sand, and if the team is weakened enough, yeah, you just click EQ 4 times and win. His team has great hazard removal options to support his Volcarona, and yeah, good hazard removal is definitely key for Volcarona to really flourish. That pairing with Drill and Volcarona is actually really nice, because, you know, I guess fire types are most commonly used to check Volcarona, and Excadrill blows them back. On the other hand, you have, I guess, those bulky psychic, levitating psychic types, which often stop Drill. But you know, you got Volcarona to be able to blow them back with Bug Buzz. His removal options, no, his hazard setting options are not too bad. You know, Drill and T-Tar, Mesprit to set rocks, and then you got Quillfish as well for those T-Spikes. T-Tar is it's a really nice hazard setup, very reliable because it's just so stupidly bulky. And yeah, Sandrill, I guess in most cases, would be more effective than Rockstrill. But you know, there will be matchups where Rockstrill will be really nice. You know, Rockstrill with Spin would be really nice just to allow Volcarona to just destroy teams. He also has that nice Stoutland for another Sand Rush abuser, Sandstream abuser. So you know, you got Excadrill to contend with, you got Volcarona to contend with, and then you know, threats like Stoutland, Keldeo, and even Latios, you know, might just sort of fly under the radar. And so yeah, this team is definitely packing a lot of threats, and it'll be interesting how each team responds to each threat and how they prep accordingly. This team might struggle with bulky waters, with only sort of Electabuzz and Decidueye there to hit them with stabs, and even then they aren't the strongest mons, so a really fat water type like a Milotic could be an issue for iPro for this team. But yeah, you could utilize things like Trick Lati, Trick Mesprit, you know, get those T-Spikes up to wear them down. But yeah, I'm sure iPro would have thought of a lot of things to take on those bulky water types. I think like Volcarona and Drill, Volcarona especially will need a Z move to allow it to break certain walls, I guess. But yeah, I think just not too sure outside of Volcarona what his other Z move mons will be. Drill can use them, but he might appreciate Life Orb Drill a little more at times. Stoutland maybe. We'll see what he goes with. On paper, his speed tiers aren't amazing. With I guess Latios being his fastest mon, but once again, you have Sandrill, you have Stoutland, you have some T-Wave support, you have Volcarona, so I'm sure he'll be fine in that regard. So yeah, really looking forward to see how iPro uses his team. Probably my favorite draft of definitely of the 8 and probably of the 16. Next up we got Jack with some nice Tapu Koko Mega Gallade offense. Really threatening and really difficult to prep for, but then we have his next 6 picks, which is just fat, but not too. They're fat, but they're not set up fodder. They have very good speed tiers, and they all have ways to sort of stop the setup sweepers and just don't allow themselves to be set up on. We got some very, yes, hazard removal isn't great on this team, just with Golbat, and that really limits Darmanitan's usefulness, I guess, because yeah, weak to rocks, and then flare bits recoil, and then wanting to click U-turn most times. I guess Glasscore can default, but last season we saw how terrible default Glasscore is. The hazards are okay. Metagross and Glasscore are very reliable hazard setters. Drapion can throw up those T-Spikes fairly reliably, but you know there aren't that many options. But thankfully they are fairly they don't share the common weaknesses like others might. If I'm honest, the Mega Glade support isn't amazing. So Mega Glade generally needs those fairy types, those bulky psychic types out of the way for it to be more effective. And although Drapion is there to help with both, you know, Drapion being a poison dark type really has those stabs to hit both of them. But from experience last season, I found that Drapion just wasn't strong enough in most cases. So we'll see how Jack plays around them. But yeah, we got Metagross. Metagross can really take on those bulky fairy types, maybe. Another cool thing about this team is that, or another thing that I like about this team is that all 11 mons can be useful. We saw from the previous drafts that, you know, there might be one or two mons that are just there for memes. But yeah, in this team we got all 11 mons viable to be, I guess, picked week in, week out. And hopefully that helps Jack prepare, and hopefully that hinders opponents in some way. He does have quite a few things weak to ground, but he does have quite a few immunities as well, sort of these three here. But yeah, this team is not too bad. We'll see how he goes with it. Very bulky offense, literally bulky, and then offense, and then these two. Miss Magus is interesting. Miss Magus, yeah, I think it's really underrated. We'll see how it goes. Next we got TC, the one of the guys that got promoted from Kakuna last season. So TC was actually the runner-up. And right off the bat we see that Ghost, his one Ghost resist is Sneasel, which isn't really a resist, and then his two dark resists are Whimsicott and Sneasel. So yes, a lot of dark and ghost spam on against this team will be definitely very effective. His team is actually quite fast, but the speed tiers are really clustered as well. So we've got Sneasel, Whimsicott, Zeb Striker, I believe is over 100, and Zam. But then you got, you know, the Manaphy Victini Flygon at base 100, Rotom at 91, I think, and then Necrozma. Then down to Scizor and Rhyperior. So they're clustered, which is not ideal, but it's not terrible at the same time. Its team looks fairly offensive, but nothing really hits that hard right off the bat. Definitely need something to set up before they can do a lot of damage, but you know, Victini is the exception here because it's just V Create just does so much to things, and yeah, Fire Stab is definitely really good in the format. And because this team sort of lacks that immediate power, Z moves will definitely be important, and we'll definitely have to use them effectively. The good thing about I guess the lack of immediate power is that they can, all these mons can set up. Like Mega Sizzle has really good piping and also really nice defenses to be able to set up an SD. Same with Manaphy and Flygon to a lesser extent. Necrozma is there as well with its myriad of setup options. And yeah, with Prism Armor makes it super bulky. But yeah, we'll see how he goes with it. He also has a couple of really nice revenge killers in Zam. Zam, probably the best revenge killer in the game. Sneasel with some nice priority. And then he's got some nice pivots down the bottom with Whimsicott and Zeb Striker. The hazards are lacking a little bit. I think Rhyperior and Necrozma are the only two rockers. The removal as well is not ideal, with only default Sizzle and default Flygon. And when you have a team with Victini on it, yeah, I guess removal is more important when you have Victini. Next up, we got Owen with a very Owen team. He's been drafting, I guess, these top 6 mons with great regularity as of late. Got Fun DT, just a huge wall breaker, but also a possible setup sweeper. We got Mega Gyarados. We all know how good Mega Gyarados is. And then we got Klefki to set up those screens. Something which he's been doing quite a lot lately. So yeah, I saw it a lot in Brawl for All, saw it a lot in Summer Showdown, and he's been doing it in Leagues as well. So I think Brick Break is something opponents will be bringing against him fairly regularly. But what Klefki does is, if he does get those screens up, we've got, what, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 setup sweepers that can really destroy teams. And yeah, teams would definitely have to be prepping for a lot for the setup sweepers. His speed tiers are quite bunched. We got, Serp, Espeon sort of together, then Thundy, Salamence together, Entei as well. So not ideal, but I think the speeds that he hits are okay. Hazard game is also not that strong, with only sort of Klefki, Cloyster, Metang. I'm not even sure if Rampardos gets rocks. But yeah, for a team full of setup sweepers, I would have liked to have seen a little more hazard setters, a few better rock setters, just to allow those sweeps to occur more easily. Yeah, his removal is not really there. I guess default elements, rapid spin, Cloyster. Once again, not ideal, but with I guess he can overwhelm teams just with the sheer amount of setup sweepers he has, and most of them are fairly bulky, so they'll be able to take a hit, set up, and then sort of break teams, and then send in the next one, set up, and break the next sort of wall core. and maybe allow something like a Scarf Fence to clean up. But we'll see. We'll see how he uses his team. If his opponents scout him and see how he's been using Mega Gyarados in the CPBA, they'll get a good idea on how Owen's been using Mega Gyarados. Next up, we've got Lejon, Hive champion, looking to come back and defend his crown. And the first thing I saw was that he has just two absolute rubbish fonts at the end. Glaceon, Sudowoodo. I don't know if either of them are going to come ever. Lejon has a habit of picking rubbish mons at the end that he just never brings. But he also does have a habit of picking Milotic. But yeah, he's very good with Milotic, and I'm sure he'll continue being good and allowing Milotic to shine. Other similarities with his drafts, he's got that bulky cleric, bulky fairy cleric, fast mega, terrible steel type that's not really a steel type, and Garchomp, I guess he uses. I'm not sure how often he drafts Garchomp, but Garchomp is good, so I'll let him slide with that one. He does have very limited hazard options, looking like just Garchomp and Sudowoodo. Garchomp is definitely better as a offensive mon rather than being sort of locked into that rocks role. So we'll see how Lejon sort of deals with that. His roles are covered, but mostly covered, but they're not very deep. What I mean by that is, like, Chomp is a nice breaker, but there isn't much else that breaks with Chomp. Zam is a nice revenge killer. I guess Crobat can help with that as well. But there isn't much else outside of that. And then you got Hawlucha, Kartana, Chomp. We got some nice setup supers here. And then Milotic, Porygon, Sylveon form a nice war core there, along with Electros. So Electros, that nice pivot, a nice slow pivot, to hopefully get in things like Chomp, things like Kartana, make it Alakazam, to really dent teams. This team could potentially struggle with slower wall breakers, like I guess Mamoswine's the first that comes to mind, purely because of that speed tier cap that he has. Not looking at these two because I don't know what their speeds are, but you got above 100, above 100, above 100. Like his offensive mons are all above 100. And then Milotic, like there isn't that slower mon that breaks like a Mamoswine, like a Nidoking, to sort of stop those similar mons being run adamant and modest. So we'll see how he goes with that, how he goes with dealing with that, because although Porygon 2, Milotic and Sylveon are very fat, this team doesn't have a lot of hazard removal options, so might get worn down with hazards and just being constantly pressured. But yeah, that's just how I would beat this team. But yeah, I know nothing, so what do I know? Next we got Jake, and man, this is a long ass video, but we're on to the final four. And we got something that I haven't seen too much of. We got that double dragon spam right at the top, and I'm really excited to see how this works out. Would have really liked to have seen a steel type here, rather than here, because although they don't share common weaknesses, aside from Dragon, you don't really want Zard switching into like Ice types. You don't really want Zygarde switching into ground types repeatedly. Like, they are bulky enough to do so once or twice, but you don't really want them to do them, you know, repeatedly. So something like a Skarmory, or like maybe even a Bronzong somewhere down here would have been really nice. Skarmory especially to complement these two at the top, because what Skarmory does is actually gives him more hazards, which he just doesn't have aside from Nidoking, and also removal, which once again he doesn't have apart from Blastoise, and that really helps out Zard. Yeah, another thing that surprised me was, I guess, the lack of reliable recovery. Yes, you know, for just Kangaskhan can throw up wishes, but if you throw up a wish, you're inclined to click Protect, and that loses momentum at times. So yeah, surprised that he doesn't have as many sort of reliable recovery options as usual. Maybe this will force Jake into playing more aggressively, you know, change up his playstyle a little bit. But we'll see. We'll see as the season progresses how he uses this team. Speed tiers are pretty good, hitting most of the important ones, and sort of nicely spaced out as well. So that's really nice. Ground spam, something like a Zygarde 10 could really pressure his team, because, you know, he's got one immunity. So like Chomp can put in a lot of work, and it's his team. And he has one resist, which is a Virizion, which isn't exactly known to be a good defensive mod, but I've used Virizion briefly, and yeah, it can take hits. It's got reliable recovery and synthesis, so we'll see. But the issue with, you know, those two is that they are both weak to ice. So ground spam with ice coverage, yeah, could be difficult for Jake to handle, but I'm confident that he will be able to handle it. Bird spam is another issue, which he doesn't seem to have a lot for. So we got Duoblade, that's his one resist, but you know, Duoblade relies on Eviolite, so if he gets that knocked off, its longevity is shortened, and you know, it doesn't get reliable recovery as well. So yeah, a few issues that I can see with the team, but I'm sure Jake will be able to overcome them, or make trades accordingly or appropriately to help. Next up we got Paladin, with a draft that in my opinion is fairly top heavy. So, you know, similar to Legion, these bottom two mons aren't great. Frostlass as well, I haven't seen used to the greatest effect. So, but yeah, these top six are really solid, and they're really good. The speed tiers are actually really whack. Yeah, because then you got Sceptile, and then you got a lot of mons that are just around the same speed. So you got like Infernape, Nihilego, Zapdos, Miltank, Crocodile. They're all just around that same speed. Frostlass as well, and then there's just a huge drop to like Arzu or Bronzong. Yeah, so once again, that anything below Crocodile is just going to be able to run Modest or Adamant and just bop things really hard. It does have a lot of great setup options though. SD, Nasty Plot, Infernate, Fairly Drum, Arzu. Hopefully we see bulk up Power Trip Crocodile, because his team kind of deals with Crocodile's checks pretty well. What's Crocodile weak to? Like water, grass, fighting, bug, ice, and he seems to have dealt with most of them fairly well. You got, I guess, Infernate to take care of those grass, ice, bug types, Arzu to take care of those fighting types, so it's really just the water types, but you got Mega Sceptile, which hopefully can allow Crocodile to really shine. I guess there's also a lack of immediate power. Arzu can be powerful, but either needs to set up or needs a choice band. The same sort of applies with Infernate, Crocodile, and Nihilego. Nihilego sort of to a lesser extent, because it has Beast Boost, and sort of if it gets a kill, then it kind of snowballs. But yeah, it's hopefully he'll probably have to utilize quite a lot of choice items just to be able to break teams. Actually, Sceptile can set up, can't it? With SD or something? Adds another option. Something different that I guess you don't really see very often is that his Firewater Grass Claw is actually really offensive, and I actually really like that. You don't often see offensive Firewater Grass Claws, so I'm keen to see how it works out. It's also fairly important to note that I'm pretty sure he's picked Z Status Arzu, and he has been using Z Belly Drum Arzu to great effect in recent times, so something that opponents will definitely be looking out for as they come to prep for Paladin. The last two, we got Dylan, up from the Kakuna League. I believe he was third. Yep, that's probably why he's here. So 3 up, 3 down. With, I guess, a good start to his draft in Tapu Fini and Jirachi, laying down a really versatile platform. But then his next mons are just really offensive. And I'm not sure if that really helps Jirachi and Tapu Fini exhibit their versatility, because outside of Jirachi there isn't many hazard setters, and outside of Tapu Fini there isn't exactly a lot of hazard removal, and hazard removal is pretty important for Dragonite. So I guess I kind of see Fini and Jirachi limited to like a pivot or support roles, but hey, whatever you need to do to win. I guess in my season 3 CBA run, I would have said that I used Jirachi and Clefable fairly poorly, purely because I didn't have many rock setters, so I needed them to set rocks for me. But yeah, those mons are good enough to be able to do the job which you need them to do week in, week out. But yeah, looking at his team, we got some really nice priority options. E-Speed, Ice Shard, Quick Attack. I don't know if this gets Quick Attack. Gen 1 mon probably gets every move in the book anyway. And his team is really, really fast. So yeah, I can see him just some nice pivoting between these two, set up some rocks, and then break, set up sweep. Yeah, team's really offensive, and looking forward to Dylan yeah, destroying teams. Mamo can be used pretty similarly to Ace's Breloom, in the sense that if he can break those steel, rock, ghost types, that'll really allow Zangoose and Dodrio to lock into a normal type attack or a flying type attack and just hit teams really hard. Toxic Orb, Zangoose is nothing to laugh at. It's so strong, and Dodrio is pretty strong in its own right. No Dark type, which is a big issue for me, because I really need to see a Dark type on every team. A Dark type and a Steel type, but he has Jirachi. But I mean, outside of Jirachi, there's nothing else that resists Psychic. And yeah, Calm Mind, like Calm Mind Mew, could be a lot of trouble. Thankfully, he does have a Mega Beedrill to sort of take on those Psychic types, but you know, if hazards are up, if Beedrill's taken a lot of chip damage beforehand and is somehow taken out of the equation early on, then bulky Psychic types could really give Dylan a lot of trouble. He really has to sort of just take them out before they set up too much. Another thing that he might struggle with is like a really fast fighting type, like a Megalopony. So strong fighting types, he has a few resistances to, but Salazzle, Mega Beach were not known for their defensive, not known for their bulk, and Tabufini lacks that reliable recovery. So high jump kick from like a Mega Medicham can really dent this team, but I don't think Mega Medicham was drafted, so he doesn't really have to worry about that. Plus he has a lot of things that just outspeed Mega Medicham. But Megalopony might be a bit of an issue because it outspeeds like Jolteon, Salazzle, can fake out Quick Attack. I think Fake Out Quick Attack kills Mega Beedrill after rocks, so that's not really a check. And then just High Jump Kick and returns the rest of his team. But I guess that's an issue for most offensive teams. Yeah, just Megalopony just destroys offensive teams. But we'll see how he goes. Hopefully he does quite well. Lastly, we got Genius with Megalopony, T-Tackle. Yeah, those two really help each other. But they are both weak to fighting, which he has a few fighting weaknesses. But we got Togekiss, Celebi, Gengar as well to take those fighting types. I guess those poison types. So if you got a fighting type with a poison move, could be a lot of issues for Genius there. What other things? The Gengar Megalopony offensive synergy is quite nice. So generally speaking, you got those bulky fairies, bulky psychics, which take on Megalopony, but Gengar can hit them both super effectively with stab. T-Tar is really nice in that regard to help to shoot trap those psychic types as well. And he has a lot of dark resistances to help sponge those hits aimed at Gengar. But he does have a few passive walls here. Piloswine I wouldn't say is as passive as the other two, but yeah, some passive walls, but I guess I've been Alomomola and Registeel aren't as passive if you know how to play around them. So we'll see if Genius knows how to play around them. I haven't seen him play too much. He is a new guy as well, but yeah, I'm sure he'll be able. I'm sure he knows how to deal with not being set up on. But yeah, I really like how versatile these walls can be. T-Tar, Kiss, and Celebi. And you got these 6 here to form a really solid wall core. Fairly solid hazards, very reliable hazards, very reliable rock setters. And then you got, I think, Frogadier with those spikes and T-spikes to just add just another dimension for other people to prep for. Meloetta is a pretty nice steal in round 10. It's really bulky. We saw at the beginning of this season, last season, how Jack was able to use Meloetta to great effect. And hopefully Genius can repeat that same success with Meloetta. And probably should mention Haxorus as a nice setup sweeper, but also a really nice breaker. So yeah, this team is pretty nice, and hopefully it does well with it. Hopefully everyone does well with it. This season's looking to be really competitive, probably even more competitive than last. Such is the nature of the Hive, but yeah, I hope you guys were able to sit through this ridiculously long draft analysis. Maybe I'll leave. Nah, I won't. I'll leave the notes, my notes, in a paste bin in the description box below. If you, for some reason, are still listening and don't understand what I'm saying. But yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed that. Look forward to doing some power rankings next week or the week after. I believe games are going to be played starting this week, so yeah, maybe I'll get some power rankings out at the end of this week or early next week. But yeah, I hope to see you guys then.